How's everyone doing? Good. You guys ready for Ta-Nehisi?
Yeah.
You ready to welcome the son who is returning? I am too. I'm like always amazed, and have always been amazed with this young man, but especially as he has matured, as he has taken the lessons from our community, as he has bathed himself in those lessons, and as he has given them back. I'm always amazed, and I get so much from it. And I think we won't be disappointed tonight in what we get. This is an historic occasion. This is a historic church, as Pastor said. And I just want to present some history, a minute of history. For me, I was telling Ta-Nehisi the last time I've been in this sanctuary, Pastor, was for the funeral of one of my mentors, Walter P. Carter. I've been in the church since then, but in the sanctuary, I've been in, Reverend Dodson had it going on. But to know that that was the last time I'm back now, Walter P. Carter was one of the most significant men we raised up in this community. And he raised a lot of us up. A lot of us up. His energy flows through me to Ta-Nehisi. So to know that Walter was here, and to know that, and that was a little minute ago, I think Avon would agree, a little while ago, but to know that that energy from Walter P. Carter still flows in our community, and that it's present here tonight, humbles me. It humbles me. And it also lets me know how fortunate we are for the sacrifices of men like Walter P. Carter, of other women in our community, to give birth to the young men we're going to hear tonight. Ta-Nehisi Coates will start. I don't know, because this is his moment.
Upstairs, a group of students here in Baltimore City Public Schools, and asking advice how you made it. I really had no advice of great substance, because I think the first thing I had was I had two parents, and then after that I got really lucky. But the functional part is to have two parents. So being here in Baltimore tonight for my second book, and having my dad introduce me is a privilege. It's a privilege. I could expect it. I don't know if Dad remembers this, but the last book that came out, I think we did our first event of Human Books in August, remember this? And Dad introduced me to the student. And I think the entire population of folks is about this row right there. That was it. I should have came to Baltimore. I was in New York. I forgot where I was from. But that's okay. That's all right. You work at it, you do all your stuff, and you work to get to a point where we can do something a little bit more. So, the foundation of that is first of all, my parents, my father, Paul Coates, who introduced me, my mother, Sean Waters, who was here. Thank you very much for being here. This is not a small thing. I talked about it in the book. My dad was a great lover of books. as a young person. Like, it was really my mom who taught me to read and write. And I don't know how aware my mom was of it at the time. Maybe she told me, but I don't want to take any credit from anyone. But certainly I proceed from there, very much so. So like my first lessons in writing, I had many teachers over here, but my mom was actually my first editor. When I was like, how old was I? I was 5, 6 years old. The essay used to make me write how old? 5, 6, something very. Okay, maybe 6, 7. Yeah. But young, that really, it all really proceeds from there. Having said that, creating this book, Between the World and Me, required another editor who was here with me tonight, my great friend Chris Jackson. Hey, Chris. Is Chris not in here? Raise your hand. He's in the back. Sorry about that, man. That's a metaphor in that right there. But I'm just going to do this, I think I knew I was going to talk about this. Chris is really, I said this the other day in an interview, Chris is really the hero of this book. Because what I came to him was with a very, very vague notion, mumbling something really, really incoherent about James Baldwin. And wondering, I think what I said to him in the conversation is, why doesn't anybody write like that today? I just finished reading the book, I was just totally blown away. And he said, yeah, nobody does, but maybe you could. Maybe you could, or maybe you can at least try. So try I did over several drafts. I was just asking Chris, how much heartburn I gave him as I was turning in those drafts, because they did not look like what the finished book is. Without Chris's guidance, without Chris's mentorship, I would not be here right now. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank Greg Cutie, who's in the back next to Chris, who somehow works some magic to us both here tonight. We're very happy to have. It's been, I guess we're on daily emails right now. Greg is basically controlled the flow of publicity, which is unlike anything that I've imagined. I just did not see this happen, going from the notion to all the publicity that we've had for the book. And I said this book proceeded from a notion. And there are a couple of main notions that are really at work here. And one of the dominant ideas in the book Between the World and Me, which is effectively an extended essay, told in a letter to my son, is the notion of fear. Because I think when people think about African American communities, there's a lot of things that come to mind. And one of the things that does not come to mind, I think, enough in the mainstream conversation is simply how afraid we are for our bodies, how afraid we are for our children, how afraid we are for our loved ones on a daily basis. And I understood this as a very, very young person as I talk about it in the book. From my earliest memories, I was talking to Dad about this a little while ago. When I think about my first memories of going, my first coherent memories of going with my mother and father to see Marshall A. Conway in prison. And understanding that the black men, are in prison. That was like my first memory. He had done something, somebody accused himself of something had happened. He did not have full freedom and control of his body. And that was something that happened to people who looked like me, even if I didn't quite understand how and why that happened. And then as you grow up in the community, you have to, go out into the world and, navigate. I've said this several times in many places. I have my memories of going to middle school here in Baltimore, and I think about how much of my mental space was possessed with keeping my body safe. How much of it dealt with how I was dressed, who I was walking with, what neighborhood I was walking through once I got to school, how I conducted myself, in the school, and not so much, in such a way to be obedient to my teachers, but in a way that would keep me safe from the violence. I was talking in this interview the other day, I was saying that any sort of policy that you think about in this country that has to do with race ultimately comes back for black folks to securing our bodies, the physical safety of our bodies. So we have these kind of high and abstract debates about affirmative action. And in the minds of certain people, we think those conversations are literally just about is my kid going to get into Harvard or not. But behind that for us as black people is a conversation of is my kid going to be able to have the means to live in a neighborhood where he or she walks outside the house and they're not looking over their shoulder. And they're not watching their back. They don't have to do the sort of things that I have to do. The threat of Now, one of the horrifying things, and this is what I'm going to read about tonight, even for those of us who escape those neighborhoods, even for those of us who make it somewhere, are able to do something and live in better places, the threat never quite leaves us. Because once we're no longer afraid of the neighborhood, it turns out we actually have to have some fear for the very people we pay taxes to protect us. And that's what we've been hearing about for the past year in this country. We've been seeing a lot of that. And it seems like there's a kind of national conversation going on right now about those who are paid to protect us, who sometimes end up inflicting lethal harm on us. But for me, this conversation is old, and I'm sure for many of you, the conversation is quite old. It's the cameras that are new. It's not the violence. We are not in the midst of a new way of anything. A new technological way. And this is not unprecedented. The sort of violence that folks saw, in the 1960s. In Selma, for instance, or on Bloody Sunday. That sort of violence was not, in fact, actually new. That's what white supremacy, what racism is. It is an act of violence. What was new was the cameras and a certain technology that was able to take that into the living rooms of America. We're going through a similar thing right now, but the violence is not new. When I think about the first time, I really became aware of this beyond theory. It was in the instance of the killing of a good friend of mine. I should say, a friend of mine by the name of Prince Jones, who I went to Howard University with. As a brief aside, when you write things, they're forced to become abstract, and when you do it, they become abstract. And then whenever you're forced to talk about them, they become real. All the emotions that you feel about those people come back. I'm going to try to control myself here. Prince Jones was a fellow student of mine at Howard University. He was a tall, beautiful young man. He hailed from a prosperous family, a family that had always been prosperous. His mother, was the child of sharecroppers, had worked her, way up through life, out of, poverty in Louisiana, and had originally become a prominent radiologist. Prince was in Prince George's County, Maryland, driving late at night. He just dropped off his young daughter. He was going to see his fiance, and he was in the Jeep, in an SUV. The SUV he was in was being followed, as it turned out, by the police, Prince George's County Police. And I'm in Baltimore, so you guys know about the reputation of Prince George's County Police. I don't need to give any sort of lecture from that. The gentleman who was following him had come to work that night as an undercover police officer, and had dressed up as a drug dealer. So he was, literally dressed as a criminal, to appear as a criminal. He was in an unmarked car. He thought Prince Jones was someone else who, he was supposed to be doing surveillance on. He tracked Prince Jones from Prince George's County, Maryland, through Washington, D.C., and into Fairfax, Virginia, where, as far as I'm concerned, he, in fact, could be executed.